we started the Labrador, Austin, on a raw food diet. And we have seen just amazing results with that. We now have quite a few people who've joined our little dog food grinding consortium, and we actually control what the dog eats, the quality of the food. Our dog was definitely much more fit. And when they came over and they saw what we were doing, and they saw our dog's coat, and they saw his weight, they thought, we're just going to go ahead and join. So there's actually 3 of us now that actually grind food for our dogs every 8 weeks.
Hi, this is Dr. Karen Becker, and today I have a really fun guest with me. Today I'm interviewing Paul Sandro Yepes, and he's really an avid dog lover. I actually met Paul because he emailed me a video of him making homemade dog food, and it was so fun for me to watch that I asked if he would be willing to Skype with me and share a little bit about how he got into the passion of making homemade dog food. He's got some great stories about the history of how homemade pet food came to be in his life. And we have a link at the bottom of this article associated with this video that you can see the video that he made, which is really fun, and he put it to some great music, and it shows how easy it can be and how organized his system is because he's kind of mastered it. So Paul lives, professionally, Paul is an IT manager in Mission Viejo, California. He lives there with his partner of 22 years, Andy. They have 2 grown kids, 1 Labrador Retriever, whose name is Austin, and 1 blue and gold macaw named Dante. So welcome, Paul. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
And talk to me, share with us and our readers, our audience, our listeners, about why you got interested in homemade dog food, or how you even came across the concept of deciding to switch from a commercially prepared diet to homemade food.
Sure. I guess it was about 4 years ago, we lost our Dalmatian, our 13-year-old Dalmatian. And about 2 years ago, we decided to get another puppy, and we decided on a Labrador. And as we started planning for the puppy, we started talking about, doggy daycare. We started talking about training. We started talking about, all the crate training, and we came to the conversation about diet. And my Dalmatian, Chaucer, towards the end of his life had really bad urinary issues, and starting to get sort of paralysis and those types of things. And we wanted to sort of take a look to see if there was something else we can do from a food perspective for the new puppy. And so Andy went online and he started doing all this research, and he came across your video, the 10 best and worst foods for your dog. And he was sold. He sent me the email to my work address. I listened to it and I thought, well, there's only one answer. And so from the beginning, we started the Labrador, Austin, on a raw food diet. And we have seen just amazing results with that. We now have quite a few people who've joined our little dog food grinding consortium. One, because they recognize that it's a very healthy diet, and we actually control what the dog eats, the quality of the food. Austin's brother, Sterling, he was adopted by some very good friends of ours, and when they came over and they saw what we were doing, and they saw our dog's coat, and they saw his weight, they thought, we're just going to go ahead and join. So there's actually 3 of us now that actually grind food for our dogs every 8 weeks.
That's awesome. Now, when you first so from the video, it looks like, really, it shows how when you kind of become a master of raw feeding, how quickly and easily it kind of comes together, and you've worked through the kinks, and you have a system down, and it's so cool to see how other people do it, which is why it was inspiring for me to talk to you. When you very first started making homemade food, for most people, it's scary. It's a little overwhelming. You don't really have a system yet. You're afraid about doing it wrong. Initially, it's not as easy as it looks on your video. Talk to me about what you and Andy felt when you very first did this.
It was interesting. When we had the book, and we sort of used it as a stepping guide for everything that we used, and we actually used all 3 recipes. So we agreed that the fallacy of never changing your dog's diet was truly that, a fallacy.
Yep.
So when we recognized that, we got very excited, and we immediately said, let's try all of the 3 recipes, and we did them in batches as shown in the video. The first time we did it, the kinks, or the things that didn't work out, is when you start buying the quantities of the dog food, when you buy a chicken, you don't realize how much waste of fat is there, on the skin. And so we actually had to run back and forth to the store to make sure that we had enough, of just the pure protein to make the diet. So that was, sort of an interesting way. We also found that, having to get a large grinder to handle the bulk of food that we did. So the smaller grinder that I had, we realized was not going to do the trick for us, because we really did want to use the bones for the chicken, for that calcium and those types of things. So we decided to buy a larger grinder. Because I won't lie to you, it does take some time to do some grinding, especially for 3 large dogs.
You bet.
You only want to do it, once every 8 weeks. And so we did get a reach-in freezer as well, to make sure that we had room to store the food.
And so you've kind of evolved into having this kind of group, almost like a food co-op. You guys all get together and you basically make dog food together every 8 weeks. That's such an awesome way to do it. First of all, it becomes social. You know that you're picking fruits and veggies and the meats. You see them, you grind them, you cut them up. You know what's going into your pet food. That's a huge peace of mind for you. You know there's not contaminants. You know that there's not ingredients that you didn't put in there. But the cool thing is you're doing it, every other month. So I'm sure that how long does it take you to make food for 3 dogs for 8 weeks? Is it an 8-hour process, 6-hour process?
It's about a 10-hour process.
Yep.
Not counting the shopping.
Yep.
So, again, they're large dogs, and but again, you're right. It is social. It is a lot of fun, and we sort of switch who does what, whether it be carving up the meat and carving out the fat versus the portioning. So it's actually a good time.
Yeah, which is good. So you are making foods every 2 months because that works for your lifestyle. You're able to get together, hammer it out. You make food for 3 big dogs for 2 months. That's a lot of time, 10 hours, like you said. A lot of people, their biggest complaint is, I don't think I have the time. And really, the convenience of buying a commercially available food is just that. It's wildly convenient, but it's pretty expensive. You're able to actually ultimately reduce a lot of your costs because you're making it yourselves. The trade-off would be your time commitment. You've been able to work out a system that allows you to only prepare food every other month, but you had to make some investment then in that situation of a freezer. So your investments economically have been a big old freezer. How big is your freezer?
Oh, it's large. I could probably put 3 large bodies in it.
I believe that. Yeah, exactly. So 3 cows maybe. And then you also had to buy a grinder.
Right.
And where did you end up? Did you end up reading reviews? How did you find your grinder? Did you go to Cabela's, or did you read reviews, or what did you do for finding your
Yeah, we did. We did a lot of reviews, and to find out which would be best for us, knowing that we were going to be grinding turkey bones as well as chicken bones.
Yep.
And we ended up going to Cabela, and I think we found it through your website as well, and got their largest grinder.
And are you happy with it?
I am thrilled with it.
Okay, that's wonderful. So Paul was able to decide from early on that he and his partner Andy, that they wanted to put their dog on a raw food diet right away. I'm proud of him because he's done 2 things. He's figured out a system that reduces stress on his life that works for his personal circumstances, where every other month he's able to create a huge batch of food. He has a food co-op where he is working with a couple of other friends to be able to kind of mass produce in your kitchen food for all of your families, which is awesome. But he has stuck with the recipe, and that's one of the things I'm a stickler for, is making sure that if you're going to make a homemade diet, that you, especially because he was raising Austin from a puppy at 8 weeks, that the calcium phosphorus ratio is correct, that the trace mineral ratio is correct. It's very important that he follow a recipe that has been approved to be nutritionally complete, and you've done that. When you first made the vitamin and mineral mix, I would say the second biggest question about my book is, okay, I get the concept of homemade foods. I like to be able to pick up my own ingredients. I like the recipes, but boy, it seems very tedious. It seems overwhelming when I first read it, and I don't want to make the vitamin mineral mix. Did you have a hard time making that, or was no big deal for you?
Yeah, it was really no big deal. I think everything that was being called for in the recipes, both from the veggies, the meats, and the vitamins and minerals, were very easy to get hold of. So it actually was, and I like sticking to the recipe because it makes it so easy. Once you do it the first 2 times, it's like route, and you don't have to think about it. So it's absolutely phenomenal.
So if you can compare, you've had Austin on this diet for his whole life, so it's hard to know what he would have been like if he was fed a kibble prior. But tell us about some of the changes that you can see, maybe comparing to the Dalmatian that you had prior. I mean, we know that poo size is smaller, right? They have smaller poo.
Oh, most definitely, most
Yes.
definitely.
And coat?
Yeah, and I think, like I said, when his brother came over,
Yeah.
his coat was much more dry. He had skin issues; it would almost look like dandruff. And when they looked at our dog, his coat was much more silkier. His skin was definitely, very little dandruff and the dander. So that alone was enough to see that there was a health benefit that was
Yeah.
there. So and again, like you said, we started from a puppy. And so we actually had at their 1 year birthday, we invited all of his brothers and sisters. So we had 10 puppies, now dogs, 1 year old, at our house, and it was amazing to see
Yeah.
the body structure that was different from our dog and his brother Sterling to all the other brothers and sisters. Not that I want to say anything bad about anybody's dog, but our dog was definitely much more fit. People would say, "Oh, he has a taller build," and I'm like, "No, he's just the proper weight."
Right.
And it's just amazing, and there's no overweightness with the dog. He has a lot of energy, and the smaller poo is definitely a blessing.
Yeah, it is. It is. Small poo, less shedding. And then I'm assuming that he has been vitally healthy. I mean, you've not had allergy issues with, labs can have some inherent breed-specific things. They tend to shed like a banshee, and probably Austin was shed less than his peers at that 1 year birthday party. And he has no allergies, I'm sure, right? He is allergy free. That's awesome. People oftentimes they want to move to a homemade diet. They're just intimidated. If you could offer some words of encouragement, what would be when people say, what do you feed your dog? Or, oh my gosh, isn't that a lot of work? What's your response to people that are thinking about doing a homemade raw food diet?
I think the following the recipe, it simplifies the entire process. There's no guesswork whatsoever, from portions to what vegetables and those types of things. I'd simply say just follow the recipe, follow the book, and start small. You don't necessarily have to do the large batch all at the first the first taking. Go ahead and do the smaller batch and see how that goes for you. I mean, I'm lucky with the lab. He eats absolutely everything, and he's not finicky at all. Yeah. So whether we're doing the chicken, the beef, the turkey, he will gobble it up. So
Sure.
we're very lucky in that respect as well.
Yeah, you are. So he's open-minded. He'll eat whatever you put down for him,
Right.
which is wonderful. Do you, when you first went from feeding your dog that had transitioned kibble to raw food, did you or Andy have any apprehensions about the concept of raw? Were you nervous about feeding raw meat, or did my video kind of pare it down enough that you felt comfortable?
Yeah, no, I mean, we did. I mean, I think that there were certain things that we were questioning about, okay, the salmonella, and, there is something about, okay, great, after you feed the dog, clean the bowl, those kinds of things. Our daughter was thinking about, her younger kids,
Yep.
or, if she was going to, get pregnant again, are there concerns? Because she's also with our pet food consortium. So we looked at that a little bit, but other than that, we weren't too concerned. There's a lot of raw dialogue out there right now. Some of them, aren't as balanced as I think your diet is, and I think that's what made it so logical to us to move to your diet and to your recipes, because it just made so much more sense than to throw a couple bones, meaty bones to a dog and a carrot. It just seemed a little odd.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, your video was wonderful. I appreciate you making it and sharing it with me. Viewers, you will love it. So click at the link at the bottom of this article to watch Paul's video on how he makes his homemade raw food diet. Thank you, Paul, for joining me.
You're welcome. I was glad to be here.